If you're watching this, don't ever plug in an old webcam you find at a thrift store. Trust me, I did, and I'll never sleep the same again. I'm not exaggerating. This isn't one of those silly haunted doll on eBay stories or some Reddit creepypasta written to spook middle schoolers. I wish it was. This, what I'm about to tell you, is the kind of mistake that seems harmless in the moment but plants itself in your life like a parasite. You don't notice it feeding at first, but eventually, it takes more than you can give. I bought the webcam because it was cheap. $10. That's it. The kind of purchase you don't think twice about. Just a forgotten little gadget in a cardboard box next to old phone chargers and cracked PlayStations. Dust on the lens, cord wrapped like a snake around its body. Nothing special. Nothing dangerous. At least, that's what I told myself. The guy behind the counter even joked when I paid. People don't use these anymore. Phones do it all now. Probably doesn't even work. He had no idea how much I'd later wish he'd stopped me. Or maybe he did know. Maybe that smile wasn't a joke at all. See, here's the thing. It didn't just record me. It recorded something else. I don't even know if recorded is the right word. Because when I went back to check the files, when I saw what was actually there, it wasn't like watching footage of myself in bed. It was like watching myself, plus. Like there was a second presence stitched into the frame. Something the naked eye should have missed, but didn't. I know how insane that sounds. I know you're already leaning back, maybe smirking, telling yourself you wouldn't be dumb enough to plug in a dusty thrift store webcam in the first place. And that's exactly why I'm telling you now. Because once you see what I saw, once you understand what this thing captured, you won't ever sleep with your laptop in the same room again. Hell, you might not sleep at all. Here's your first warning. The camera didn't just show me tossing and turning under cheap sheets. It showed something else moving in the background. At first, I told myself it was a glitch. Corrupted pixels. Shadows stretching wrong because of bad software. Anything but the truth. But the truth doesn't care what you want. The truth waits. And every time I pressed play, every time I convinced myself it was nothing, that glitch got bolder, clearer, closer. I should have thrown it away, smashed it, burned it. But curiosity is a poison, and I drank it down like water. The first night, I thought it was a glitch. By the third, I realized it was watching me too. Before everything went sideways, my life was boring. Not tragic, not cinematic, just boring. And maybe that's what made me so vulnerable. Because when you live in a constant loop of the same beige days, you start looking for little sparks of novelty, even if they come in the form of dusty, forgotten tech from 2009. I worked a dead-end job at a logistics company. You know, the kind where your boss says things like, "We're a family here," but still denies your time off requests. Yeah, that was my reality. 9 hours of spreadsheets, endless calls about shipments, and that awkward small talk in the break room about weather patterns. Riveting stuff. Most nights I'd get home, kick off my shoes, and immediately fall into the internet void. Scrolling, browsing, half watching YouTube videos I'd forget 5 minutes later. That was my ritual. The glow of the monitor was my night light, my lullaby, my companion. And I'll admit it, I'm a sucker for nostalgia. Maybe it's because the present felt so bland, but I was constantly trying to rewind the clock. Old games. Old websites dug out of the Wayback Machine. You know that feeling when you hear the Windows XP startup chime? Yeah, that's me. A walking museum of dead tech. So when I spotted that old webcam sitting in a bin at the thrift store, it didn't even feel weird to grab it. It felt like a little piece of my teenage years had resurfaced. Back then, I used to play around with webcams, grainy video chats on MSN Messenger, goofy green screen effects, the works. This one looked just like the clunky models I remembered. I figured, why not revive it? Maybe I'd record a couple of ironic Twitch streams, leaning into the lo-fi aesthetic. I even joked to myself, yeah, let's give people retro horror vibes, like I'm streaming from the Blair Witch basement. I should have known then the universe doesn't appreciate irony. Plugging it in was supposed to be a harmless nostalgia trip. A dumb, harmless idea. But hindsight is cruel. Anyway, I took it home, tossed it on my desk, and forgot about it for a few days. Work drained me, as always. But one Friday night, after microwaving some questionable leftover pizza and scrolling through Reddit threads about cursed technology, I decided, hey, let's see if this thing works. There's something weirdly satisfying about unwrapping old cables, untangling that spiral of wire like you're unlocking a puzzle. I dusted off the lens, plugged it into my laptop, and waited for that little ding. Sure enough, it lit up. A tiny red LED in the corner, like an eye flickering awake after years of sleep. I laughed, out loud. Guess this relic still has some life left. Maybe I'll bring back webcam karaoke, I said to no one. Here's the thing, nostalgia is comfortable. It tricks you into lowering your guard. I sat there, smiling at the grainy image of myself on screen, the washed-out lighting making me look like a washed-up ghost already. I played around with the angle, held up random objects to see how bad the resolution was. It was bad, but it was funny bad. Then I noticed the timestamp. Bottom right corner, that classic green digital font burned into the frame like something out of a VHS tape. Except it was wrong. It didn't match my laptop clock. Not even close. According to the webcam, the date was set to March 12th, 2007. At first, I chuckled. Wow, someone forgot to update this thing for over a decade. I figured it was just some factory setting burned into the firmware. A glitch, like an old VCR flashing 12 o'clock forever. But something about the precision of it, down to the hour, the minute, the second, nagged at me. It wasn't random. And here's the kicker. March 12th wasn't just any date. My brain nagged me like it recognized it from somewhere. A birthday? An anniversary? Something I should remember, but couldn't. That crawling unease started right there. Still, I brushed it off. I even made a joke to myself, whispering in a fake announcer voice, "Coming to you live from 2007. Watch me embarrass myself in 144p. But deep down, the cracks had started forming. That timestamp was the first splinter. The first thread in a sweater I should have left alone. The first night was fine. At least, that's what I told myself. I didn't expect much. I set the webcam on my dresser, aimed it at the bed, hit record, and climbed under the covers. Honestly, I thought it'd be funny. Like one of those time-lapse TikToks where people discover they sleep like lunatics, arms and legs everywhere. I figured the worst I'd see was myself drooling on a pillow. I slept like usual, tossed, turned, dreamed about nothing. Woke up groggy but not haunted. No scratches, no whispers, no demonic entities clawing at the walls. Just another night. The real horror didn't come until I pressed play. At first, it was exactly what I expected. Me rolling around, kicking the blanket off, the grainy frame freezing now and then like the webcam couldn't keep up. Harmless. Almost boring. Then the static hit. It happened quick. Just a flicker, a stuttering band of distortion across the screen. A split second of snow, then gone. If I hadn't been paying attention, I might have missed it. But I rewound, watched again. There it was, jagged white lines, the frame tearing like an old VHS tape. Weird, sure, but not terrifying. This was a thrift store webcam, after all. I laughed it off. Lag. Compression. Maybe the file's corrupt. I muttered, trying to sound like I knew what I was talking about. But then, right after the static, I noticed something else. Movement. Not me. I was dead still on the mattress, mouth hanging open, blissfully unaware. But behind me, in the corner where my desk chair sat, a faint flicker of motion, like a shadow bending where there shouldn't be one. It was subtle, barely visible through the grain, but it was there. I paused, squinted, told myself, maybe I rolled over earlier. Maybe it's just compression artifacts. Maybe the chair wobbled. I wanted so badly for it to be nothing. And maybe that's why I didn't shut the laptop right then. Because if I had stopped after night one, I wouldn't be telling you this story. The second detail came later when I glanced back at the timestamp. 3:33. That's what it read. Big, ugly, digital numbers burned into the bottom right corner. I frowned. That's not right. I remembered waking up around 7, the sun already bleeding through my blinds. There's no way I'd slept through only 4 hours. I checked my laptop clock. It said 6:59 a.m. when I stopped recording. But the footage insisted on 3:33. Weird coincidence, right? Except, when I rewound, every time the static flickered, it was stamped with the same time, 3:33. over and over again. The first time I shrugged. Okay, spooky number, but whatever. Glitch. The second time, my gut twisted. The third time, I felt cold. It wasn't just a random malfunction. It was a pattern. And if you know anything about horror, real or fictional, you know patterns are never good. Still, I rationalized. People do that, don't they? We laugh at things we don't understand, so they don't scare us as much. Cool. Guess I'm haunted by the ghost of bad firmware, I said out loud, trying to sound amused. But the words fell flat. The truth? It wasn't funny. It was terrifying in that quiet, creeping way. Like realizing the knock at your door has been happening every night at the same exact time, even though you live alone. That night, I unplugged the webcam, shoved it in a drawer, and told myself I was done with it. But curiosity doesn't die that easy. It festers. It waits for boredom, for weakness, for that late-night itch of what if. And when the itch came back, I scratched it. Because deep down, I wanted to know what I'd see the next night. By the second night, the pattern wasn't subtle anymore. I pressed play, expecting the same jittery static, the same half-seen shadow in the corner. And yeah, the static was there. The timestamp still locked at 3:33 a.m. But this time something else had joined the frame. At first, I thought it was just me. The shape was blurry, swallowed by pixelation. A tall blur, darker than the shadows around it, planted at the edge of my bed. I froze. My hand hovered over the trackpad, knuckles tight, afraid to keep watching. But I couldn't stop. I dragged the slider forward frame by frame, and the shape stayed there. Standing, leaning closer, inches from my sleeping body, not moving like a glitch, not flickering like a distortion, just standing. I told myself it had to be a trick of the resolution. Maybe my chair cast a weird silhouette. Maybe a jacket I'd thrown on the corner had slumped in just the right way. But then, frame by frame, the shadow bent forward. Slowly, intentionally, like it was watching me breathe. I yanked the laptop closed so hard I thought I'd crack the screen. That night, I told myself I wouldn't check again. But you know how it is. Once you see something you shouldn't, your brain becomes your enemy. Every whisper of curiosity digs deeper. What if it wasn't real? What if it was? What if you're safer knowing than not knowing? So of course, I watched again. And the second playback made it worse. Because this time, the figure didn't vanish after a few seconds. It lingered. Minutes passed with it hovering over me, its head tilting unnaturally, its outline wrong. Even through the pixelation, I could swear I saw its shape ripple, like a person blurred underwater. When I woke up the next morning, the terror wasn't just in the footage. It was on my body. A bruise bloomed on my forearm, faint yellow-purple, like a handprint pressed into my skin. And my sheets were ice cold, as if the window had been open all night, but it hadn't. I wanted to believe I'd thrashed around, hit my arm against the wall, kicked the blanket off. But deep down, I didn't believe it. I did what any sane person does when they're scared out of their mind. I joked about it. I snapped a blurry pic of the bruise, texted it to my buddy Mark with a dumb caption. Ghost high-fived me in my sleep. Guess I'm popular now. He didn't laugh. Instead, he called me. Not text. Called. His voice was sharp, urgent, not playing along. Dude, don't screw with me. What's in that video? What are you talking about? I asked. I saw it. In the reflection. Behind you. Don't tell me you didn't see it too. I swear my stomach dropped into my shoes. Reflection? What reflection? The window, man. Right by your bed. When you moved, something was there. I'm serious. Don't send me crap like that again. He hung up before I could answer. For hours I sat there, replaying his words. The reflection. I hadn't noticed it before, and I couldn't bring myself to check again. My hands shook too badly every time I hovered over the file. So I did the only thing I could. I pretended it wasn't happening. Daylight made it easier. In the sun, everything felt normal again. Work was still boring. People still complained about traffic, about bad coffee. My boss still smiled his plastic smile. The whole world seemed oblivious, and I wanted desperately to stay in their version of reality. But night didn't care about daylight. At night, the cold came back. The bruises multiplied. My dreams turned heavy, sticky, filled with faceless people whispering numbers I couldn't remember when I woke. I'd jolt awake, drenched in sweat, sheets twisted tight like restraints, the laptop's red recording light glaring at me from across the room. I told myself I'd stop recording. Just pull the plug, throw it away. But I didn't, because fear has a way of rewriting logic. You start thinking, if I stop watching, then I'll never know. If I never know, then maybe it'll get worse. Maybe it already is. So I gave in. On the fourth night, I didn't go to bed. I sat up in the dark, laptop open, live feed streaming. The grainy image showed me exactly what I already saw with my own eyes: an empty room. My bed, my desk, the faint glow of the streetlight through the blinds. Nothing unusual. Hours crawled by. My eyelids grew heavy, but I forced myself awake, glued to both the room and the screen. At 3:33, the static hit. White bands cut across the feed, the screen tearing, just like before. And when it cleared, there it was. The figure, not in the recording, not delayed, not playback, but live, standing over the bed I wasn't in, its head slowly turning toward the camera. And this time, I swear I felt it turn toward me too. Watching the feed live was supposed to give me control. That's what I told myself, anyway. If I stayed awake, if I kept my eyes locked on the grainy little window on my laptop, then whatever was happening couldn't sneak up on me. But control is an illusion. Because that night, at exactly 3:33, I learned the webcam wasn't just recording. It was opening something. The static tore across the feed again, hissing through the speakers like white noise. My room warped on screen, shadows stretching, walls bending like the whole image had been dunked in water. And then it appeared. The figure. It stepped into the frame. Even though the door to my room never opened, I kept flicking my eyes from the live feed to my actual bedroom, over and over, trying to catch the trick. But the door stayed shut. The air stayed still. No hinges creaked. No footsteps fell. Yet there it was, standing inside. I won't describe its eyes yet. You'll understand why soon enough. It was humanoid, yes, but wrong in every way that matters. Too tall for the ceiling, its edges blurred like bad CGI, its proportions shifting between frames as though it couldn't decide what shape to hold. And its face, God, its face wasn't its own. It was mine. Or, at least, it was wearing mine. Through the static and pixelation, I saw my own features stitched onto its skull, like someone had copied me badly and didn't care if the seams showed. The mouth was too wide. The jawline melted into the shadows. My cheekbones twitched, glitching in and out like corrupted data. I think I stopped breathing. Because if it had only looked like a stranger, I could have told myself it wasn't real. But seeing me, seeing my own face warped into that thing, shattered any excuse I had left. And then the light blinked. That tiny red LED on the webcam, the one that means recording, flashed 3 times. But here's the part that still makes my stomach turn. The webcam wasn't even plugged in anymore. I'd yanked the cord out hours before, paranoid about leaving it running unattended. Yet there it was, glowing like an open eye. I nearly threw up. You're probably wondering why I didn't smash it right then, why I didn't torch the thing and be done with it. But fear doesn't make you rational. Fear makes you curious, even when curiosity feels like swallowing glass. So I did what any desperate idiot would do. I started searching online. And before any of you jump in the comments asking, did you even check forums? Did you run diagnostics? Did you test another camera? Yes, I did all of that. I scoured old threads on paranormal boards, dug through Reddit subs buried so deep moderators had abandoned them, clicked on archived GeoCities pages that hadn't been touched since dial-up days. And that's when I realized I wasn't the first. Scattered posts, usually ignored or mocked, described almost the same thing. Thrift store webcams that remembered the wrong dates. Lights that blinked even when unplugged. Recordings stamped with 3:33 a.m. One post chilled me more than the rest. It was from 2014, buried in a dead tech forum. The title read, "Does your webcam watch you back?" The user described setting up an old Logitech camera and seeing what they called phantom recordings, footage that didn't line up with real time. They claimed the files weren't saved on their computer but appeared anyway, stamped with dates years in the past. The final line of their post burned itself into my brain. I thought it was just glitch footage until it started showing me things that hadn't happened yet. I sat back in my chair, heart hammering so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about me. This wasn't just my nightmare. It was bigger, older, and the worst part? Most of those users had never posted again. Their threads ended abruptly, like the accounts had been abandoned or erased. That's when I realized this wasn't just about recording the past. It wasn't just about capturing my image while I slept. It was about rewriting, about showing me versions of myself I was never supposed to see. The bruises on my arms, the cold sheets, the warped reflection my friend swore he saw. It wasn't glitches. It wasn't lag. It was the thing in the camera trying me on like a mask. And it was getting better at wearing me. The deeper I dug, the less this felt like coincidence. At first, I thought I was chasing ghosts in abandoned forums, the ramblings of bored teenagers, or conspiracy nuts with too much caffeine and not enough sunlight. But then I stumbled across something that made my skin crawl in a way no shadow ever could: a corporate recall notice. Not just any recall, either an official one. A press release archived on some forgotten corner of the Wayback Machine, dated July 2009. The brand name was one I half recognized. One of those third-party knockoff companies that used to flood shelves at Radio Shack and Walmart end caps. They'd pumped out cheap webcams, flash drives, even those ugly translucent keyboards everyone regretted buying. The statement was short, sterile, and designed to be forgotten. In cooperation with the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, company name is voluntarily recalling its 2008 to 2009 line of external webcams due to unspecified manufacturing irregularities. Customers are advised to discontinue use and return the product for replacement. No mention of danger. No mention of risk. Just vague words like irregularities and discontinue use. But when I started looking for news coverage, that's when the mask slipped. A small-town newspaper, one of those local weeklies that barely exist anymore, had run a story on the factory where those webcams were made. The article had been buried under zoning disputes and softball game recaps, but one detail stood out. Multiple factory employees had gone missing during late-night shifts. Vanished. No bodies, no signs of foul play. Just gone. The company denied any connection, of course. Called it rumor. Called it coincidence. But one union rep quoted in the piece had said something that burrowed straight into my chest. Sometimes, when we passed the testing floor, it looked like the monitors were still on. Even when the computers were shut down. Still on. Like the webcams were recording something else. I sat there staring at the screen, my room suddenly feeling too small, too wired with unseen electricity. Because the pieces were starting to line up. The timestamps that reset to 3:33 a.m. The figure wearing my face. The red LED blinking even when the power was cut. These things weren't just cameras. They weren't built to capture light. They were capturing something else. Imprints. Residues. Maybe even timelines. The more I thought about it, the more it made a sick kind of sense. What if webcams like this didn't just record your room? They remembered it. What if every wall, every shadow, every breath you exhaled near the lens left a scar, like film burning on repeat? And what if, stay with me here, what if it wasn't just remembering your room? What if it remembered other versions too? Rooms where you weren't alone. Rooms where something else stood in your place. I started tracing other breadcrumbs. Old tech forums where people swore their webcams turned on by themselves. A YouTube upload from 2011, long since taken down, where a guy claimed his laptop camera showed him sleeping in a house he didn't recognize. A 2017 blog post about haunted peripherals, half joking until the author admitted he'd smashed his mouse because it clicked by itself at night. Different devices, different brands, same eerie undertones. The more I read, the more a horrifying possibility wormed its way into my head. Maybe webcams weren't the only gateways. Maybe microphones, monitors, even smartphones carried the same cracks in their circuitry, tiny doorways left open by accident or by design. And maybe that's why the recall notice never mentioned danger. Because danger was the point. I wanted to stop digging. I swear I did. Every sane part of me begged to pull the plug, to throw the whole cursed thing into a dumpster and pray the garbage truck buried it forever. But curiosity is an infection, and I was already terminal. So I went back to the feed, back to the one place that promised answers, no matter how much it cost me. And that's when I saw it. A file appeared in the recordings folder, one I hadn't created. My laptop was offline, the Wi-Fi switched off, but the file was there anyway. Date stamped, labeled in the same ugly block text as the others. Night. I hovered over it, my pulse in my throat, my skin crawling with sweat. And then I pressed play, because how could I not? And that's when I realized the truth I'd been afraid to say out loud. This camera wasn't just showing me what had happened. It was showing me what was going to happen. And then I played back a night that hadn't happened yet. I shouldn't have pressed play, but of course I did. Because curiosity isn't just a weakness, it's a trap. And by then, I was already snared. The video opened the same way the others always did. My bedroom, grainy and washed out under the faint glow of my desk lamp. At first, I thought maybe it would be nothing. Maybe this was just a cruel joke of corrupted files, some glitch chewing on my nerves for sport. Then I saw him, or saw me, but not the me sitting there, alive and anxious, gnawing at his own thumbnail while the laptop fan whirred. No, this version of me was different. His face, my face, was pale, twisted with terror, lips cracked from screaming. He was clutching at his arm like something had torn into it, blood soaking the sheets, and he kept shouting the same thing over and over again. Unplug it, unplug it, unplug it. It wasn't just panic. It was pleading, begging. My own voice, raw and shredded, like it had been echoing in that room for hours. I slammed the laptop shut so hard the hinge cracked. But the sound didn't stop. I could still hear the screaming, muffled, distant, seeping through the walls of my skull, like my future self was bleeding straight into my eardrums. Do you know what it feels like to be haunted by yourself? Not a ghost, not some random shadow, but you. Broken, battered, begging? I don't recommend it. 10 out of 10 on the nightmare scale. -10 on the sleep quality scale. And yeah, try explaining that to your boss. Oh, hey Jim, sorry my report's late. I didn't sleep because my thrift store webcam gave me a sneak preview of my death in 480p. Yeah, that'll go over well. So instead, I just stopped going to work. At first, I lied, claimed food poisoning, the flu, whatever excuse came easiest. But soon even that slipped away. Because how do you care about paychecks or deadlines when your future self is literally screaming at you from the other side of a cheap lens? Days blurred. Nights bled. Sleep? Forget it. Sleep was for people who weren't scheduled to die on camera. Every time I blinked, I imagined opening my eyes to find that figure standing at the foot of my bed. You know the one. The shadow. The copycat. The watcher. And then one day it happened. Not at night. Not at 3:33 a.m., but at noon. I was sitting at my desk, half delirious from insomnia, sipping lukewarm coffee like it was holy water. The webcam was still connected. I couldn't bring myself to unplug it, not when the me in the video had begged me to. Paradoxical, I know, but fear rewrites logic. The live feed was open, silent, just the lazy image of my room. For once, nothing moved. No shadows, no flickers. Just stillness, until it wasn't. Because suddenly, in the feed, the door creaked open. Except in real life, behind me, the door stayed perfectly shut. And through that door, on the screen, something stepped in. Tall. Wrong. Its limbs slightly too long. Its head tilting like a broken marionette. But the face, God, the face was mine. Not like before, not just stretched features over darkness. This was detailed. Accurate. Every freckle, every scar, every tired line carved by sleepless nights. It was like the camera had stolen my reflection and given it a body. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. My hands shook so violently I nearly spilled the coffee all over the keyboard. On the screen, it moved closer. Step by step, shambling but deliberate. Its eyes, my eyes, never blinking, locked on me. And then, it turned its head, not toward the bed, not toward the camera, but toward me, the real me, sitting at the desk, watching. The screen and reality blurred for a moment. like the boundary between them had melted. The creature, my reflection, my future, my parasite, whatever the hell it was, wasn't contained anymore. The LED on the webcam blinked red, then off, then on again. Faster, almost like a heartbeat. And I realized, too late, that it wasn't just in the feed anymore. It was in the room. I knew I had to fight back, or at least I thought I did. The obsession had consumed me. Nights bled into days. Sleep was an old concept I could no longer afford. Every shadow, every flicker of static, every pulse of that cursed red LED felt like it was plotting against me. I couldn't trust my eyes, my ears, or even my own reflection. The only thing I thought I could do was watch back. So I went all in. I set up multiple cameras in my room. Cheap webcams from thrift stores, spare phones I hadn't touched in years, anything that could give me different angles. One on the dresser, one on the ceiling facing the bed, one pointing at the door. I wanted coverage, wanted redundancy, wanted proof, or at least I convinced myself I did. For hours I watched. The feeds ran in split screen on my laptop, each showing the same grainy room from different perspectives. The shadows seemed normal at first, just shadows. My heartbeat slowed as I thought. Maybe, just maybe, I was finally in control. Then it started, all at once. The feeds stuttered, flickered, twisted like they were being pulled through static electricity. The clocks on each feed, every single one, flashed 3:33 a.m. simultaneously. I froze. My stomach churned, my fingers stuck to the keyboard. I could feel the air thicken around me. The room grew colder, the walls pressing closer, the ceiling lowering. And then, in the middle feed, the one on the bed, the shadow moved. Not vaguely this time. Clear. Defined. Too tall. Limbs stretched impossibly long. But worst of all, the face. It was mine. I felt my chest tighten, lungs struggling for air. I wanted to scream. Wanted to bolt. But I couldn't. The copy leaned closer to the camera. Its lips barely moved. Keep watching. The whisper crawled under my skin, vibrating the bones in my ears. It wasn't human, not entirely. It was the me I had become, or perhaps the me I was supposed to be. Its voice was mine, distorted, twisted, and merciless. And then it reached the bed, my bed. I bolted upright, but nothing moved. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. The red LED blinked again. Faster. Hurried. Urgent. Like a heartbeat. Like a countdown. Before I could react, everything went black. I don't know if I passed out or if it pulled me under some kind of digital vacuum. My laptop slipped from my fingers. The feeds went dead. The room fell into silence that was too heavy to breathe in. And when I woke, I wasn't on my bed. I was sitting at my desk, staring at the screen. The room looked normal, or as normal as it could be after weeks of horror, but there was a new file open on my computer. I hadn't recorded it. I hadn't even touched the keyboard. The file clicked play, and there I was. Or rather, there I was. Not the me from reality, but a version of me sitting at the desk, staring straight into the webcam. My eyes were wide, haunted, pleading. My voice broke as I began to speak, but it was louder than a whisper, as though the feed had amplified every ounce of fear and dread I'd ever felt. Don't plug it in, the recording said. Don't think you can watch. It's already here. And if you're seeing this, it's too late. It's with me. Every pixel of the screen vibrated, warping my voice into a chorus of echoes. And in the background, behind me in the footage, the red LED blinked in perfect rhythm, each pulse syncing with my own. Whispers returned, unintelligible at first, then clearer. Keep watching. Keep watching. They came from everywhere. My speakers, my headphones, the laptop itself. The room wasn't just full of shadow anymore. It was aware. I tried to close the file. Tried to shut the laptop. Tried to pull the plug. Nothing worked. The computer ignored me. The screens multiplied. My reflection stared back from each feed. 100 versions of me, screaming, pleading, warning. And then I realized, it wasn't just in the cameras anymore. It had learned. It had grown. It existed beyond the wires, beyond the lens. Every red blink of every webcam was an I now. Watching, waiting, learning. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes? Hours? Days? Time stopped when your reality becomes a feed. My chest heaved. My throat burned. I wanted to call for help. But who could believe this? Who would believe that the reflection in a webcam could reach through the screen and become you? And then, the final moment. The copy stepped closer on the screen. Its face, perfectly aligned with mine, whispered again. Keep watching. The words didn't just echo, they commanded. My hands moved as if possessed, fingers hovering over the trackpad, powerless to stop myself. The feed shifted. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was being recorded. And the footage showed me, terrified, looking at the screen, looking at them, and warning whoever would see this in the future. And that's when I understood, the cycle didn't end with me. It would continue. Because if you're watching this, it means it's already with me. And maybe, if you're brave, or stupid, enough to plug in an old webcam you find at a thrift store, it will be with you too. I never intended for anyone else to see this. After what happened, I felt like I was walking through the world with my own ghost glued to my back. The laptop sits on my desk, still blinking red at odd intervals, even when it's off. And the footage, the cursed, impossible footage, sits there, waiting for someone to watch. Waiting for someone to unknowingly become the next observer in this cycle. I posted this story online, though. I had to. Partly because I needed someone, anyone, to understand what I went through. Partly because I can't face this alone. And partly because I need your eyes. Yeah, you reading this right now. I need theories in the comments. Maybe someone has seen this before. Maybe someone knows how to stop it. Or maybe someone has already felt it. Felt the camera blinking at them. The shadow leaning too close. The whisper crawling through their speakers. Because here's the thing. I don't think it stays contained. Not entirely. It learns. It adapts. It waits for attention. And now, by sharing this story, by letting you watch, I've passed a part of it to you too. Maybe. I don't know. And that's what keeps me awake at night. So if you feel that twitch in the corner of your room, if your own reflection seems just a little off, if a webcam you forgot you had flickers red when it's unplugged, don't dismiss it. Don't think it's just a glitch. And don't say I didn't warn you. I won't tell you the ending. I can't. Because there isn't one, not really. Every time someone presses play, every time a curious mind decides to check just once, it grows. It spreads. It learns to mimic. It waits to become you. And now, I leave you with this, because I can't stop it from being curious. I can't stop it from reaching out. I can only warn you. Don't replay this story at 3:33 a.m. That's when it starts recording you too. If you've experienced anything similar, leave a comment. Share your theories. Help me understand what I unleashed. Or maybe, help the cycle continue. Because the truth is, the story doesn't end with me. It doesn't end with this video. And by the time you read this, it might already be in your room. Watching. Waiting.